And I do apologise for the delay in the start. There was very good reason for it in that Linda Irvine was in the Shannon, and we're all very pleased that she's there. And I think this committee as well would want to acknowledge the great work that she has done and the courage that she has shown, and she's widely known. I come from a Gaeltacht area, so we would love to have her in the Gaeltacht area in Balmullet as well, but that's why our senators are tied up there today. So I think she's a great example indeed of the programme that we're talking about. Even she's a great example of reaching out and the type of work that needs to be done in all communities right across the island. But I'm delighted to have the opportunity here today to discuss this with you. And thank you very much for what you've submitted beforehand. I really read with interest because I have a big interest in the LEADER programme here and how that has worked right going back to the 1990s, the early 1990s, and the good work that's done in terms of empowerment of communities and individuals and building capacity and all of that. And I suppose one of my questions would be around the animation work that you do within this programme. Is there sufficient allocations for the animation work that needs to be done to get to the hard to reach areas and the hard to reach individuals and communities? So that would be it. And just in terms of the underspend, I see you have some flexibility there to have the spend done by June of this year. Is that sufficient, or could you be in a situation where some money has to be given back? Hopefully that's not the case. Also, I'm very interested in your shared education aspect of it, and I want to ask you around third level education and if there are opportunities there for greater collaboration and exchange. There's very low numbers exchanging between north and south and north, and you know, what role can those programs take in progressing that? And because I believe not only in the academic value of that, but also in terms of peace and reconciliation, the exchange of views and the mutual respect and the mutual understanding that's gained from students, well, from across the board, but from students at third level, I think can be immense there. So I'd like to see if the programmes can play a part there. I also want to acknowledge, in terms of education, we had Peter Weir here before from Politics in Action, and just to ask what your involvement might be in that. Again, we had two different schools down here and discussions around mental health and around other aspects that affect young people. And obviously what we find is that regardless of what community people come from, there are many, many common issues there that need to be addressed, and certainly in terms of combating poverty and dealing with social exclusion, that's one of them. I want to ask as well in terms of education, just I was at the launch in Achill the other day of the outdoor education, and I just thought it would be, it was this, the ETB have it, the Outdoor Education and Training Provision. It's been brought under the ETBs now. If that is something that the programme would look at in turn, I think it's a great way again of bringing people together, and if there can be some cross-border stuff there in terms of the Atlantic University, I think that creates opportunities for us all up along the western seaboard, and in combination again with McGee, how the programme might be able to support that work or advance the opportunities in terms of research and in terms of shared education again. And sorry, I have a lot, but I just want to ask for your comments as well in terms of your transport section, the All-Ireland Rail Review, if you have submitted into that, and again, if you can see that there are opportunities there within the programmes to support some of the findings that will come out of the All-Ireland Rail Review. So that's probably it for the moment. I want to hear from yourselves, and I know Francie will have some questions as well. Thank you.
All yours. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, we are doing what we call pre-development support for every investment area across the programme, and what we're trying to do is make sure that we put in place support with applicants before the call opens so that they can have some expertise at helping them shape their project, think about their project, think if this call's actually suitable to them or whether they could be directed elsewhere. And we've had our first of those back in December for the Children and Young People measure. So we do have the funds to do that out of our own, what would be called the technical assistance budget, which is the administration budget for the programme. So the funding is there to allow us to do that. And we think that's going to be very valuable, both for increasing the quality of the projects, but also getting into, as you said, some of the hard to reach groups, to give them that bit more support. And we've already carried out some research underway in some of the harder to reach groups to see what supports they need from us and what we can provide for them for the future. So we are doing that. That's very important. The underspend, yes, this is always what happens at this stage in any of the programmes. You get some projects are slightly underspent, and obviously COVID and the impact of that has exacerbated that. But you also get projects in that require more money. So we balance it as we go along, moving money between the different areas in order to achieve the programme objectives. There is always a risk that we might end up underspending. It hasn't happened before, but it still could happen. Particularly projects don't tend to give up their money until the very end. But so we have to be a little bit more bullish and saying, no, we don't believe you're going to use that and we need it elsewhere. So we manage that as best we can. In relation to collaboration and exchanges of third level education, there are elements in Peace Plus programme that will be able to facilitate some of that under the skills section in theme 2, I think in particular, for the collaboration between universities cross-border and other institutions cross-border for that skills development. The shared education going forward is current shared education programme is it involves some integrated schools, integrated education schools, but what it really is about bringing schools together that are of different community backgrounds. The children train together, the teachers train together, the children have shared lessons together, they go on field trips. It's been hugely successful in actually making friendships and indeed breaking down some of those barriers at that very young age. So that's why it's going to be continued into Peace Plus. Paul, do you want to add anything on the education side?
Not so much on the education, but certainly Gina's alluded to some of the work that we've been doing there with hard to reach communities. I mean, we're still collating some of that information, but the direction of travel on that, I think, is clear, and we're going to have to probably engage at quite a micro level on that, just given some of the sensitivities around at the moment. So more on that to come probably is the best one to say on that, and certainly around the underspend. I mean, we've now engaged with all the departments as of Wednesday, I think was our last conversation, and we're writing out now with a fairly robust line in terms of how we need to take the spend modifications forward.
Yes. In relation to mental health, we have a project now in the current Peace programme, which is one of the regional projects, and it's very focused on transgenerational trauma. So, you know, you're absolutely right, but mental health in relation to the Peace programme has to be related to that aspect, and unfortunately we can evidence the fact that the transgenerational trauma does have a big impact. So we have a project running at the minute, which we're very proud of, and the Peace Plus programme also has allocated, I think it's 25 million, to young people's mental health interventions specifically associated with the aftermath of the troubles and conflict and how it's come down through generations. The educational side, again, as I said, there is a lot of information in here in the Peace Plus programme, especially with the ETB, the likes of that, what I've already explained in terms of the research and economic side for getting involved in the programme. So there are many opportunities, and we're talking to all the players as it is because they're still involved in these current programmes. We have also in the theme 5, we have allocated money towards the train. And that does speak to the All-Ireland Rail Review because it is about increasing the service to an hourly service between Belfast and Dublin, and also getting it ready for the future of electrification. So we have a significant allocation in there for that very reason. It's a
But don't forget the western side and the western seaboard.
No.
We
I know, but
everything is Belfast, Dublin, but
Yeah,
I know what you said, but
yeah.
the review will obviously take
course,
that in
of
board,
course.
and we want to increase I come from Mayo, so we want to increase connectivity there. I'd love to be able to get in a train in Mayo and go to Belfast, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think the only real project we do have in the minute is in this increase of the service between Belfast and Dublin, and that was really to do with obviously the environment, but the cross-border linkages as well, very specific about labour mobility. So that was the first point.
I'm conscious Francie is waiting.
Sorry, just before we go on, if the meeting will agree, there's only about 5 minutes left, so we'll give 10 minutes. We'll extend to 20 minutes. Is that okay? So that Francie can have a reasonable period of question and answer as well. Is that okay, Francie?
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you very much, Jane, for the presentation. It's always good to see there's more money coming into the area. One of the things in line of relation to hard to reach communities, and one thing I find is that sometimes to reach out to one, we are seen to be cutting off the other. Particularly, I noticed the vocabulary now around Ireland and Northern Ireland, and I, for one, actually see it as one island and all Ireland. So there seems to be a European direction that the terms are now Ireland and Northern Ireland, and I think that is divisive and certainly insulting to my community that we have that border implication within that. So I think it needs to be revised in documents and looking at the structures. The terms originally, I think, were Republic of Ireland. That seems to have been dropped now completely. In relation to the hard-to-reach communities that we talked about, the perception that I am picking up very much is that the sectarian nature of the Orange Order is being rewarded continuously, despite the fact that some of the European programmes that have been funded and centres that have been funded are not open to all sections of the community. And I would have thought for European funding that there should be, so that we have access to all of that. I'd expect the same in relation to any community project that actually is funded on the European Union. And the big one that I think is the whole environmental issues. And one of the dealings that I would deal with locally is Lough Neagh and the Lough Neagh Partnership. The fact that we're talking about the interconnection between Lough Neagh and the Limerick and that, we can't get that because you can't get out of Lough Neagh at the moment because the Blackwater River is blocked up, and there doesn't seem to be any department or any responsibility for clearing that and allowing people to access it. So the Lough Neagh is one of the big projects sitting in the middle there, largest freshwater lake in Ireland, and yet there doesn't seem to be any sort of government department actually taking responsibility for it. And I just wonder, is that the type of thing that European funding could actually be used for within it, so that we actually do open up the waterways in Ireland in that way, and Waterways Ireland to provide a proper navigation authority for Lough Neagh. The other outlying one that goes back to the Good Friday Agreement is Rte coverage across the island of Ireland. In large parts of the north, you actually can't get Rte coverage, and also on certain days you can't get coverage because the programme is barred from people in the north. So there seems to be a bigger division there within television and radio than there ever was before, despite the amount of European money that has been poured into bringing communities together in various different ways. So that's my criticism and questions in relation to the funding, but we hopefully will see the access to everyone within it. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Francie. Yeah, the programme area for this Peace Plus programme is, and indeed the Peace programme and the Interreg programmes, is specifically the 6 border counties in Northern Ireland, the 6 counties in Northern Ireland and the 6 border counties of Ireland. And that's why it's always referred to in that terms, because that's the area that this programme is directly targeted towards. Now, the really exciting part for this new Peace Plus programme is the fact that the programme can also include partners from outside outside of the area, there's no limitation to that. So you could have a partner in somewhere in Northern Ireland who links with a group in Cork to do a project that falls under Peace Plus, and maybe takes in Mayo as well, and that is really eligible now for the first time in this programme. So we find that really exciting and really opens up the opportunities, and we'd love to get an opportunity to make sure now that the COVID has sort of the social distancing maybe has reduced a bit, to get down to Dublin and explain that very visibly, that there are other opportunities for everybody in this programme. So yes, any project that we funded under Peace, anything to do with the Orange Order, which we have, they have to be cross-community, and the projects get funded only on the basis that they are open to all communities and they're run on programme of community events. So if you have any specific examples that you want to share with us afterwards, please feel free, but certainly it shouldn't be happening in any of our Peace funded projects. In relation to the Loughney, we do fund Waterways Ireland currently in the programme, in the Interreg programme, to do some projects. So there's a large element, as I said, this programme is going to be focused on rural areas. There's a rural theme specifically within this, I think it's theme 4. Theme 4, rural development. So there's opportunities there for maybe the Blackwater to get involved, and all of those sectors that have been most affected, such as tourism, possibly Loughney could get involved in that. Well, I'm afraid I don't think I can do anything about the Rte coverage.
So are you happy with that, Francis?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
I just go back. Rose, are you happy, or do you had a few questions there? There's still 4 minutes.
Do you mind, sorry, just in terms, because I do think that I'm very excited about the opportunities that could have been for having exchange between the counties, and I saw really good examples of it being done maybe on an ad hoc basis, but even between Swinford, and they were twinned, or they were matched with Swinford Festival. They did great work there in terms of matching up with parts of Derry. And I think that could be done through the local authorities, because the Leader programme now kind of has the local authorities have a remit there. So I suppose how could we do that? How could we do a kind of a framework there that the local authorities would have, so that we could kind of just shape and frame that so everybody would be included, because I really think there's huge potential in that.
Well, actually, we do have a theme within Peace Plus called, it's the first theme, and it's about co-designed local community peace action plans, and that's money that we give directly to the local authorities, so they don't have to bid for it. It's based on deprivation index and population. And this time, as I said, we are insisting that the programme has a community focus, so these plans have to be developed with communities right down to local level. And we have people working with all of the local authorities that I've mentioned, who are now making those plans. And so I think what you're talking about could fit in very easily there, because the 3 areas that the plans are to focus on are local community regeneration and transformation, thriving in peaceful communities, and building respect for all cultural identities in a really positive way. So I think there's probably something that could definitely be done with the local authorities and their allocations.
I look forward to that. And also I'd say maybe just under your biodiversity section, because I think as well, when you look across the island in terms of biodiversity, what your protected species are and the protection, I do think that they need to be the same, and they certainly need to complement each other, so there needs to be a certain amount of congruence there. We have like the pearl mussel comes up now, and it comes up all of the time, and different areas, and I come from very highly designated area as well, and of course it's on how that designations are done and how communities are involved in it rather than it being imposed. But I think again there could be great learning from there. And
yeah, well, all of the themes there are cross-border, and they've been agreed that those are the specific species or areas on both sides that are going to be complementary. Do you want to say that?
Just a couple of brief points. The small grants that we'll be looking at, and they will be a little bit down the line because we've quite a bit of work to do, and those are probably very well suited to the grassroots type of groups that you're talking about. And I mean, if they're linking in with Derry City and Strabane Council, which is a council of great capability there, certainly that gives 2 options within the local plan and the small grants. And just to note, it's a valid point about the species that you're talking about there, and actually we're just coming to the point now to start talking to the departments about which species that they'll be putting forward. So I'm happy to feedback those comments when we're looking at that. Thank you.